Hello, everyone. Many thanks for joining us here today for our webinar. This is the second in our CHIME webinar series, Having Hope in Mental Health Recovery. My name is Margaret Keane, and I am the Education Training and Education Training and Development Officer here at West ARIES. Lovely to have you here on what is today looking like a bit of a dull old day here in the Midwest, so I hope wherever you are that there's a bit of sun shining on you. I'm going to go through a little bit of housekeeping first, tell you a little bit about ARIES as well, and then I'm going to invite our panelist, our lovely panelist, to join us, and we'll have a discussion around hope and mental health. So for those of you who don't know who we are the Recovery Education Service here in the Midwest, and basically we co-produce a range of inspirational and I'd say transformative educational programs to help people and empower people on their mental health recovery. So that's what we do. We are part of the mental health service here, by the way, in HSE Midwest. So today we're here for about an hour, and as I said, this is a second in our CHIME webinar series where we're going to look at hope. And CHIME, I'm just actually going to stop sharing my screen there for a second so I can see you all. For those of you again who aren't familiar with the CHIME framework, it's such a really accessible piece, I think, in terms of understanding personal recovery. The CHIME framework came about 2011. Mary Lee, me, and Mike Slade, and a group of other researchers looked at thousands of recovery stories. And we're looking for those central themes or those processes that came out that they could identify as being key parts of a person's recovery journey. And 5 things came out. And that's what forms CHIME. So we have connection, so connecting to yourself and really specifically connecting to others. Hope, so having hope in the future, having hope in your own recovery. Identity, so having a positive sense of self, and we know ourselves from the workshops that we run that that can be a tricky thing when you're feeling unwell. Actually, losing your sense of self can be one of those key things. M for meaning and purpose, and we all need that in our lives, something to get us up out of bed in the morning. And then finally, and all importantly, that piece on empowerment. And today we're looking at hope. So that's the background to CHIME. As I said, we're going to be here for about an hour. What I'd like to do, and we always do this with our webinars, is to get the participants involved right from the get-go. So you might have a thought or reflection on what's being said. Please communicate that with us. Start the conversation, be part of the conversation. At the end of your screen, or if you're on a laptop anyway, there will be a button there called Q&A. If you open that up, you type in whatever you want to say, and I'll then pass that on to the panelists, and it'll just bring a little bit more context to the discussion. So we'd love to hear from you. It is recorded, as you probably see already. So again, after the fact, anybody who's been here today, you'll be able to share this with anyone you think may benefit. We also record the audio as part of a long form podcast, the wellness panel as well. So lots of ways that you'll be able to actually look back on this and share with people, as I said, you think who you think this might help. So that's enough from me. I'm going to stop talking for a while, hopefully, and I'd like and invite the panelists to actually open their videos so we can see you all. We'd love to see you. That's lovely. And that's great. And basically we'll start the conversation, but I want to just introduce everybody first. So I'm just going to get my notes out here. So first up, and by no means least, is Mike O'Neill, our manager, our fearless leader here, West ARIES. Great to have you here, Mike. And if there's anything you felt I missed in that introduction, please come in at any stage. Would really appreciate that. Next is Eileen Shine. Eileen, one of our amazing, and I do really mean that, and anybody who's been to our workshops I think would agree, is one of our amazing recovery education facilitators. And thanks for coming here today, Eileen. Lovely to have you. Then we have John O'Connor. Again, I'm delighted that we've got two really important people from the acute psychiatric units in terms of the recovery and wellbeing programs that are run there. One is John O'Connor. John is the, let me get this right, Therapeutic and Recreational Co-Ordinator in Ennis Acute Psychiatric Unit. And delighted to say that John is also a proud, I hope, John, West ARIES co-facilitator as well. We're in both acute psychiatric units delivering our program twice a week in Ennis and twice a week in UHL. So we're right over the acute psychiatric services. And then finally is Sarah Danagher, who is the clinical nurse specialist. And again, is one of those amazing people that you meet when you go into 5B in Limerick. And she is, again, one of the coordinators of the Recovery and Wellbeing Programme there. So that's our lovely panelists. And let's get going. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you. So we're going to start, as we always do, with just getting all the voices in the room. So we're going to start with a brief round of introductions. So can you tell me just a little bit, tiny bit about your role? And then just as part of a little icebreaker to just oil the wheels of this conversation, when I say the word hope, what does that mean to you? So what pops into your head? So it might be a word, it might be a thought, could be an image, or it could be a personal memory if you feel comfortable sharing that. So Mike, we'll start with you, a little bit of an introduction and then that little icebreaker around hope.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret. And as you've introduced myself here as the manager of West ARIES, we're the recovery education service here. And I suppose CHIME underpins all of our work here. We build that into all of our workshops, our webinars, and I suppose it took us quite some time to actually get to the point where, yeah, let's do a series of, workshops on this. And I suppose when you look at, I suppose, clinical recovery, this sits side by side with that as personal recovery. And as Margaret correctly said, those identified themes of connection, hope, identity, meaning, and empowerment. But hope is for me, it's one of those things that's intangible. And whereas I would be very much aware that when people become mentally ill or mentally unwell, that they can lose hope. And then it's kind of, yeah, well, what does it actually look like? And for me, hope represents the future. And I suppose that would be the way I would look at hope. Yeah, so that's probably it. It's the next step. Where do I want to be, when I'm struggling, when I'm not feeling it. Yeah, so I'm hopeful I will get better, Yeah, thanks, Margaret.
I love that, Mike. Hope is the future. Yeah, it is. It's that light, isn't it? It's kind of almost guiding us on, moving away from, particularly when you're unwell, of the darkness. Thanks, Mike. That's brilliant. Eileen, I'll come to you next. So just a little introduction of yourself, and then again, that word hope. What does it bring to mind?
Hi Margaret, hi everybody. My name is Eileen and I'm a recovery education facilitator with West ARIES now, 5 years. Absolutely love the work and yeah, privileged to work with Sarah and Barbara out in the unit every week, and it's probably my favorite part of the work because you really see people, struggling at their worst, but also, even reminded yesterday when I was with Sarah, people always leave and there's always that hope. And that's what guides me in the work, that you can help a person, kind of journey through maybe a really difficult time in their life. And there's always that hope for recovery and improvement. Um, I suppose what to represent for me when I was thinking about the question, even in my own recovery journey, I remember vividly writing in my journal, I had to walk from the darkness into the light. And, I know that image, so many people have that vision of light. And I suppose for me, it's always a candle. And even if I'm struggling now, it's that light, the light of hope. And I suppose, yeah, just to share, I suppose one really quick story that even at Christmas, I remember light the youngest of my family, and I think it was an old Irish tradition, but the youngest always lit the candle at Christmas. And I remember lighting the candle at Christmas Eve. And it always just stayed with me, even as a young person, that it was kind of lighting the darkness into the winter, but also the hope for the new year. So that image, yeah, really just resonates with me, Margaret, for hope. No matter how dark things are, that crack of light. So, yeah, thank you.
And again, what I love about that is that idea of taking something intangible, as Mike said, and making it into a practice, like, and really connecting with that and making it real, and almost like, I suppose that's something you could do if you're not feeling very hopeful, just that act of lighting that candle and that reminder that you can bring light to darkness. I love that. That's lovely. Thanks, Eileen. And again, for our listeners or for the attendees today, when you're listening to this, please share what hope means to you. Maybe it might be a memory or an idea or just an image that's popped into your head. We'd love to hear from you. Just hit the Q&A button there below. Sarah, I'll come to you next.
Thanks, Margaret. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Sarah, and I am the Therapeutic Coordinator in the Acute Psychiatric unit. And I suppose within my role, I support people through their recovery by introducing and coordinating different kinds of therapeutic activities on the ward that are meaningful to people and that hopefully promote well-being. And I suppose as part of that, we try and provide a range of activities that are that are interesting to different types of people on the ward. We all have different interests, and I suppose really we try and provide opportunities that for people to engage in activities that will nurture hope by offering creative spaces and allowing individuality and empowerment of people, which is so important in, I suppose, encouraging hope and helping people to be hopeful. When I hear the word hope in mental health recovery, I suppose for me personally, I think of, staying hopeful means looking for the small moments of progress. And I suppose in my experience in working in acute psychiatric unit where people are experiencing extreme mental health challenges, it really is about focusing on, the small moments and small achievements, focusing on what we can control at different moments of the day. And I suppose in preparation today and considering the topic that we're discussing, it made me think about one of the ARIES workshops that somebody was speaking about feeling hopeful. And similar today, what hope meant to them. And I just wrote down what they had said because it was actually a piece that they developed into a poem that was that would be putting forward to be published in a local magazine called Spot So Fair. So it was very nice. And it said, she wrote, when I think of hope, I picture a small glowing light, very fragile, but always powerful, guiding me through my darkest moments. So I suppose when I read that, I think it reminds me of times when people start, I suppose, to believe in themselves again, despite the challenges that they're experiencing. Thank you.
Sarah, that's really beautiful. And I think that was when we looked at who we were going to bring on as panelists for this particular Hope one. We were thinking, there are lots of people we could ask, but I think it's really powerful for people, to hear those stories of hope, particularly in a setting where people are acutely unwell. People may not associate hope within that. They might be looking at it more, in the clinical model lens where recovery is happening there. People have the opportunity to, as I said, we were talking before we came on, of pressing pause for a moment in their life and really, examining that and looking towards personal growth. But that's a beautiful poem. John, I'm going to come to you in 1 second, but I just want to share this before I come to you with Joe has just shared. I think it's lovely, and it chimes. Sorry for the old pun, but it does chime for what we've been saying. And it's hope is waking up in the morning and being still here. And being still here. I think it's really important. It's like Sarah, you were saying about those incremental small things that people do. It's not the big stuff, it's the small things, it's the being still here. So thanks, Joe, for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And anybody else wants to share, please do. John, lovely to have you here. If you want to introduce yourself and then the hope piece.
Great, thanks very much, Margaret. Yeah, John O'Connor is my name. Yeah, I am the Therapeutic and Recreational Coordinator in Ennis, in the acute psychiatric unit here in Ennis. And like Sarah, I suppose we offer, I suppose a range of, therapeutic and recreational activities, for the service users here, to help support them and to help them move forward, I suppose in their recovery journey. I suppose for me, you know, I suppose when you think of the word hope, I suppose it's you know, I suppose it's really about you know, helping the person to, you know, to find a new perspective, you know, on issues that they've been experiencing, you know, in their day-to-day lives or with their mental health. Just kind of knowing that, you know, there is always a way forward. And you know, despite, I suppose, the setbacks of mental health and struggles that people would have experienced in their lives, that you know, they may have, you know, be meeting with a doctor, receive a diagnosis, things like that. People might feel that, oh my God, I had this diagnosis now, and this is, you know, going to define me. And you know, it's really about trying to look past, I suppose, the fact that you're, you know, might be experiencing a diagnosis or experiencing mental health struggles, and realizing that I'm still the same. I'm still the same person with the same, you know, the same attributes, the same gifts, the same talents. Still, I can still do the things that I'd like to do, things that you know, that I enjoy doing, that'll bring fulfillment into my day. That is still possible. And just, I suppose, helping to support the person to, you know, I think it's really important that people, when they come into hospital, that they kind of use this time, you know, not as a kind of, you know, as a kind of a way of kind of that they might blame themselves for being in hospital, but as, you know, as a way that actually, okay, I just need to reflect on things and maybe make sense of what has been going on in my, you know, in my life, that has kind of led to me having to come into hospital, and then helping them to find a new perspective in how to move forward in their recovery journey. I think that's and there's a lot of reward really in the role that we're in here, and the, you know, in support, in being able to spend time with people to support them, on an individual level as well as group therapy level, you know, to help them realize that, you can move forward. You know, the recovery is possible.
And that's what I'm hearing, actually, John, just those words, that recovery is possible. It is that's what hope is all about, isn't it? It's about it's possibility. I think sometimes, you know, again, when you're very unwell, possibilities are shrinking. But as you're saying, it's that moving forward, and the potential is, you're recognizing that things can get better. And thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And again, for those listening, or, you know, please share with us. We'd love to hear, in terms of the hope piece for you. What does it mean to you? We've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I really want to see if we can define, particularly when it comes to hope. Because again, in terms of the way I think about CHIME, is I always think of it, it's almost like a wheel, a recovery wheel, and you've got the 5 spokes of connection, hope, identity, meaning, and empowerment. But if one of those spokes is slightly off kilter, so is the recovery journey. It's that kind of gives you a little bit of a wobble. But central to that, I think hope is probably really, really important. That's just my opinion. But why do you think then that having hope is so important for mental health recovery, for individuals to experience that and have that and hold that? Who'd like to come in there? So why is it important? So we've defined it, but why?
Yeah, I'll pop in there.
Thanks, Mike.
Because I suppose when you look at it, I don't think I would be unique in saying that when you become so unwell, that you lose hope. You know, and it is that thing, and as Joe said, it's that thing of getting out of the bed in the morning, and it's that fight back. And I think I love the way the mental health service has transferred into that more holistic service, and treat the person, not just the illness. You know, it's not about just alleviating symptoms. That, like, if you're not dealing with the reasons why, or helping that person sort out why they became unwell in the first place, you know, well, then it becomes a revolving door. And I think that's what I love about the likes of Sarah and John, and in their service within the acute psychiatric unit, is that that's where, you know, people can start the rebuild of their lives. And I think just by having that service there, when ARIES facilitators go in, we hear about like, well, what does hope look like? As our team, we represent hope. Yeah, members of our team have been in, both Ennis acute unit and in, out in UHL, and so not only do we talk the talk, we walk the walk as well. So for somebody just looking at somebody standing in front of them that sat in the same seat that I could be sitting in, that represents hope, because like while it is intangible, it's also tangible, and we represent that. And as that collective thing that, people can and do recover. And what I find fascinating, I know myself and Margaret are working on the annual report at the moment, but like they're up on our website for anyone to have a look at. And we use CHIME as our assessment tool as well. We have a little scale. And year on year, and it's up around, I find this absolutely fascinating when you look at people who are probably in the worst place in their lives, but it's only a moment in time. Like as John said, like the diagnosis, that's a moment in time. But people, even by the time they're discharged, they're in a better place from when they had that assessment for the diagnosis. So change can happen quite fast. But like it's up around 90% of all participants who come to our workshops as part of these recovery and wellbeing programs that actually feel hopeful about recovery. And that blows my mind that when, yes, you are in that difficult place, but it is a place for nourishment, growth, time out, getting the wagons in a circle, rebuilding your life, how to reconnect then as well. Yeah, there I am, I'm going down the CHIME route again. But yeah, it can turn into something that's actually quite hopeful. It is a hopeful space. And we have our evidence, says it is. Thanks, Margaret.
Yeah, and I think you touched on there, Mike, around particularly CHIME. It is all connected. You can't kind of isolate one process from the other. They're all connected in some way. Eileen, I knew you'd want to come in on this. Brilliant. Thank you.
I suppose thinking about this webinar, Margaret, and we ran Connection and Hope in the unit in Limerick and in Clare in July. So this is coming straight from people's mouths. So I'm just going to read what people actually said about hope. So it keeps you going. Hope is support from loved ones. Hope is a garden. Creating a garden is the desire for growth and change and new life. Hope is a wish. Hope is moving forward. And it was actually echoed through both units, which is, it's kind of, for me, it's kind of like, oh, what, we're all the same. We might have different struggles, we have different challenges, we have all different life stories, and we're all unique in our own lives. But what hope meant actually it was the essence from both groups, which I found it's fascinating when we look at like co-production, and that's the heart of our work. It's everyone's voice is equal and heard. So I see Sarah wants to pop in as well. So I just wanted to share that,
Oh,
Margaret.
absolutely, Eileen. Before I go to Sarah, I just want to ask you, because I can see it in your face and I can hear it in your voice. How does it feel like as a facilitator in that moment, hearing those really powerful definitions of what hope is? And it's actually said a lot of in terms of what we've already said, moving forward, growth, garden, growth mindset, a wish, hope is a wish. I think I'll keep that one for myself. It's lovely. How does it feel for you in your work when you hear that?
I suppose when you see like the range of people of age groups that are actually in both acute services across the Midwest, and there can be varying age group, but that everybody's wish and hope is the same, and that gives me great hope that actually doesn't matter where you are in life or what age you are, or wherever you're at, people want the same. And actually it's that kind of shared learning between everyone that actually people leave the room thinking, oh, I still have a chance. It doesn't matter actually where I am at life. There is that opportunity for growth, for change. And like yesterday we had when I was in with Sarah, the icebreaker was like, if you had a magic wand and just a person leaving the room just was like, I'm gonna keep on to that idea of that magic wand. And I think it is that, for me, it is that that whole be a wish. And actually, once you identify the wish, then you can change something. But if you don't identify it, you don't. So yeah, it's just, we're so privileged to get to do the work, Margaret.
And thanks, Eileen, for sharing that, because and I love that, the magic wand, or just have, there's something empowering about, and you're identifying what you want. Yeah, brilliant. Sarah, I'll come to you in terms of that, and you want to follow on that importance piece, how you see it on the unit, possibly.
Absolutely. And I suppose very much just echoing what the other panelists are saying. I think, hope ultimately, it helps us to be resilient in facing some of the challenges and the tougher times. But I suppose without it, it's very hard to keep going when recovery is feeling, I suppose, tough and overwhelming. But it's just listening to everybody, and it just made me think of I suppose an example in that came to light in one of the ARIES workshops just held this morning. And there's a lady there, and she was speaking about, I suppose, how she keeps going and the challenges that she's facing. And it just made me think on reflection of that, hope can take many forms, and it's not always obvious to the person themselves. So when she was speaking, she felt hopeless, and she described feeling hopeless, and it was very real for her. And she was facing a lot of adversity in her life and a lot of big decisions. To the other people in the room, they heard what she said about, the despair that she found herself in. And for example, she said she just wanted to stay in bed, and she didn't want to get out of bed, that she felt so hopeless. But she said, but I came to the ARIES workshop today, and I said, she said to herself, I need to persevere. I'll go to the ARIES workshop. I'll get up. And, it made me think about, I suppose for her, she didn't see that. She didn't see it through her eyes as being hopeful, but her peers and other people around us, and, us sitting with her, saw it so differently. And I suppose it just made me also think about how, the difference that people can experience when they connect with their peers. When we share recovery stories or share experiences, to celebrate those small victories that may be small to one person but enormous to another. And by that lady sharing her experience, the people around the table were able to, I suppose, mirror back to her, actually, what you've done was incredibly hopeful and inspiring to us, and it sparked hope within the wider group. And it just reframed it a little bit, and I think John alluded to that, and maybe Mike as well. It changed her perspective, and she saw that win that maybe she hadn't seen before. So yeah, I think that connection that happens in the ARIES workshops within the recovery and wellbeing program helps spark hope. And that is, I think that's one of maybe the magic within, I suppose, coming to workshops like this together. And it just, I suppose, challenges some of our own thinking and helps us to see where we can find hope when it isn't always obvious to us.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there in terms of that peer support piece, or bringing in that lived experience piece, that shared experience. That's the real value when it comes, I think, to personal recovery in particular. It was lovely that group came together as a whole, and as you said, held up the mirror. And that's kind of a very practical way of holding the hope in some ways. But again, what I heard from you as well, Sarah, is that idea of hope being linked to resilience. It's you're keeping on going, even though you've had challenges or setbacks, which is so important. John, I'll come to you in terms of that. Do you want to share, or can you share an example maybe in terms of Ennis of when hope maybe turned it around for somebody? It doesn't have to be in workshops or whatever, but just in general, if you feel happy to do that.
I mean, it's kind of echoing what Sarah was saying there. Like, absolutely. With people coming into the workshops, says kind of like what ARIES provide. It's that kind of peer element, I suppose, that can be really kind of supportive and beneficial for people. And sometimes people come into the groups and really not knowing what to expect, but you know, they might hear something that somebody has said, you know, another maybe service user has said in the room, or maybe one of the facilitators might have said that actually that kind of resonates with them. And sometimes, you know, they might just want, you know, people might just want to sit and kind of listen in the group as well, and in the groups, and that's fine. And it's, you know, it's kind of hard to know, like, you know, if you know, the group has kind of helped the person a lot, but you know, you might see that person come back again to the next group, or you know, they might, you know, kind of share with you afterwards, like, you know, geez, you know, what that lady spoke about, maybe, for example, her personal story, I could relate to that. I could see, you know, that's what she was talking about is kind of similar enough to what, you know, to what I'm kind of going through. And you know, look at that person now, and she's co-facilitating groups and things like that. And you know, so hearing from other people, I think it can be really kind of powerful for each individual. But we had an example of maybe one, you know, one man, I suppose, who was kind of just having difficulty with, you know, family dynamics and things like that. And, you know, I suppose maybe, you know, just maybe communication wasn't great, like, you know, between himself and his partner and children and things like that. And it was kind of making him feel very kind of hopeless, because, you know, they kind of hadn't been in contact with him since he had come into hospital. And you know, he kind of felt maybe a bit of shame about that then, like, you know, they know him in hospital. And you know, but we just kind of just reassuring the person, you know, that look, maybe they're just not sure how to, you know, reach out, or how to, you know, how to, you know, you know, it's how to engage with, you know, with the person, you know, because, you know, I suppose maybe there's a stigma around mental health and things like that. And we just encourage the person, you know, just to reach out, you know, just keep communication, you know, with his family, and not take it that it's a thing that they don't want to speak to him, but it's more that maybe they might be just a fear as to how to go about doing that. So
it sounds to me a little bit
you
like,
know,
John, that
yeah,
it's almost like, you know, when things are difficult, that it goes back to that, we keep saying it, that kind of holding the hope bit. That's what it looks like, you know, particularly for that
well,
gentleman,
yeah,
if he
I mean,
was
he
feeling
was
hope.
really
You were
getting,
and you're providing that different perspective of,
yeah,
you know, that could provide that hope.
exactly, and it was causing him huge stress, like, you know,
Of
that you know,
course.
nobody had going to reach out to him. So when he did reach out to them, and they you know, reached out, you know, his kids reached out to him, like, you
Oh,
know, it did,
brilliant.
you know, kind of give him a lot of hope, and it changed his whole perspective on it, from one that was like, oh my God, my kids, they're not talking to me now because I'm in hospital, to one that that you know, to suggest that actually, you know, it was a thing that they just, you know, didn't know what to say, or didn't know how to approach a situation. And now he reached out to them, and they reached back to him, and you know, and it just took a weight off his shoulders, like, you know.
And we know that again
And
from people attending our
it's just,
workshops, the family dynamic in particular is
yeah,
always tricky
it can be,
to
yeah, it
negotiate.
can be,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
So, it's, I suppose we're kind of privileged in that role, I suppose, the role that we're in, that we can, you know, take an objective view on things. Like when somebody comes to you with a kind of an issue like that, I mean, we can kind of just help the person just to maybe take a step back and kind of check the facts around the situation, and always trying to keep that open line of communication, you know, with whether it be family or friends, or their
And I
employer,
think
or whoever it may be, you know.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and I think that's really useful, John, that people are hearing that again. That's another great example of that hope piece. And I know, Mike, you want to come in, and then Sarah, I'll come to you. I know you want to come in on that. Thanks, John, and thanks for sharing that story. I think it's really important, because the family dynamic is particularly sometimes a difficult one to negotiate. Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret, and thanks, Sean. And again, it's what you're saying is, rattling around my head there, and it's kind of half linked to the in the Q&A there. What happened when Pandora's box was opened? And it's a line that we use here in Aries, and I use it as well. It's kind of while we're talking here about hope, and we're having messages of recovery, messages of hope. And as I always say, particularly, when we're running the workshops, is, this all sounds very simple, but it's not easy. We wouldn't be here running webinars and running workshops if there was anything easy about it. And it goes back to that line, when mental illness visits a household, it's like a dirty bomb going off. And for an individual, that's a dirty bomb going off in your head. And so it's back to that Pandora's box, what happened. And and it can be life changing for the family, life changing for the individual, and it takes time and it takes hard work, unfortunately, because it's like people say, oh, you have all the trendy people out there saying, oh, go for a walk in the woods to change your life. Well, if it's that easy, we'd be all living in the forests. You know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't be doing the tap, So it is, as I said, all of these conversations and everything that we, say to people, and the question of hope, it all sounds easy, or they all sound simple, but it's not easy to get there, and there's hard work involved, Yeah, thanks, Mary.
And thanks, Mike, and I really appreciate that. And I knew you'd take the Pandora's box one. I knew Mike O'Neill will take that one because, none of this is easy. And that's why it's really important that we have these conversations, as you rightly said. Sarah, I know you want to come in there. And again, I'd just say in terms of the, the participants, the attendees, please share with us in terms of hope, or maybe you're not feeling very hopeful right now, and that's okay too. It's not all, as Mike rightly said, may sound simple, but it's not easy. And some days we just don't feel it. So, and what does that look like for you? Sarah, I'll pass it to you now.
Absolutely, Margaret. And I suppose, from listening to everyone speaking, I suppose what's brought home to what listening to everybody here today has really very much brought home to me is, yes, hope is essential because it motivates us to keep us going. But I suppose recovery isn't a straight path. And it can be hard for people to feel hopeful all the time. And it's not that we're either hopeful or we're not. Hope can come in waves, and some days it can be feel stronger than other days. And I suppose it's I suppose to be aware of that. That depending on where we're at on that day, depending on what choices we need to make in those moments, even the small ones. And I suppose all these things are so important because I suppose being able to make choices and being empowered to make them and feel supported around making decisions about your life, particularly for people who face many choices in the when they're admitted to the acute services, even the smaller choices, can help people to feel more in control, and to gain back some of that control, and believe that change is possible, and all those things I suppose help in us feeling more hopeful and thinking about that future that Mike was talking about. I suppose for me, as somebody supporting people in acute services, I feel that my own hope peaks and troughs as well, for others, for myself, for different things. We all have different hopes and dreams in our lives, but I suppose I'm inspired every day because of, I suppose, seeing and witnessing the hope that other people are even striving towards, trying to get hope back, trying to be hopeful, and even that in itself is like Eileen was saying earlier, that wish for hope is incredibly encouraging for me as somebody offering support, and I suppose in my own experience of working and trying to support people who are experiencing lots of different challenges, and I suppose offering supports that are realistic, that are meaningful to people, and I suppose that can help people to feel hopeful about their future. But I suppose ultimately my message was that hope, it comes in peaks and troughs, and that's a normal human reaction to different I suppose decisions we're making and how we feel on any given day.
And I think, Sarah, that is really an important message, something to say, that it is, as you rightly said, it's not linear, the recovery journey, but, some days you're just not feeling it. So digging a little bit deeper into that piece around setbacks and relapses, because I think that's the point where it can be tricky, and there can be some guilt about not feeling hopeful, or for, why can't I be that person? Why can't I just move forward? Sometimes it feels a little bit stuck. So with that in mind, in terms of relapse and how can you find hope in those moments? What can we do to support people? Whether you're a family member, a supporter, or just a friend, or a mental health professional. Eileen, thanks for coming in there, and then I'll come to you, Mike.
So again, actually, it came from that same session, Margaret, and I just thought it was just, again, it came from the group themselves in 5B in the unit in Limerick. So I just wrote down this cycle because I just thought it's come from the people themselves. It's just amazing. So people had written down, it was kind of problem solved between the group. It was to identify the issue, first of all, and then to seek help around the issue. And then the second point they made was to believe things can improve. So there was a conversation then about that belief piece, that having that intention that it might be improving at the moment, but having that belief that things can change and that they had changed in the past. Then the third point the group came up with was to plan. So to plan step by step. So again, we teased that out. What did that look like? So the step by step was just getting the basics right, eating, sleeping, food, getting those fundamentals right first. And then 4, which I absolutely loved, was to recognize that we all falter and to recognize that this is a cycle and keep going. And then I actually added this on today. So apologies to that group. So they came up with the first 4 points, but
It's
it was
called co-production, Eileen. It's called co-production, so that's a good thing. It's a good thing. Go ahead.
so on the 4, like the group actually said, so what you do then is go back to the start again. So identify again, what's the issue again, go back to belief, go back to plan and recognize you falter. And so I just added for myself, because this is just helpful in my own life, that recognize that things do take time. And back to that garden analogy, because I suppose I was looking at what people had said about the garden, and that, yeah, if we do falter, and I suppose the question mark was like, what happens when you don't feel hope? What happens? And I suppose that image for me is like things take time to evolve. You plant a bulb in the dead of winter, that daffodil doesn't come up till spring, so that just takes time. So that kind of recognition. And for me, I suppose that's what, if anyone's online today or even listen to this in the future and thinking I am feeling, not full of hope today or at the moment. So even to think about that cycle, identify, believe, plan, and recognize that it's not great now, but I can go again. But yeah, just wanted to share that, Margaret.
Eileen, I think that is brilliant, and that is the joy and that's why co-production works. People in the room, lived experience, and staff as well, coming together and working it out. And I don't know about you, Mike, but I feel a resource coming on there. That's just, I just think it's just too good to miss. So thanks, Eileen. That was really important to share. Really appreciate that. I know, Mike, you want to come in, and I know Sarah wants to come in. I'm sure John wants to come in as well. So we're just in terms of time, Mike, I'll come to you and then I'll quickly go to Sarah and then John.
Yeah, I'll be brief. And I suppose when we look at triggers and setbacks, I bumped into a man I know recently, and it was brilliant, the conversation we had. And he's somebody who had been admitted numerous times and had not been admitted for many, many years. And he was off medication. And I bumped into him and he says, "Oh," he says, "you won't believe it," he says, I was back in again, he says. I thought I had it licked, was what we said. And he burst out laughing, But like now he was back, he has a great life, living a good life, has a great life. And all it was a blip. And that's part of the human condition. Nobody's on an upward curve all of the time. As like as Sarah said, we'll have those dips, we'll have those troughs, and sometimes all we have to do is to maybe just hit pause, wait, this will pass, and then go again. And for some people, as Eileen correctly said, they may have to go back and tear up the script and back to square one and start again. But for some people, it could be just hit the brakes and wait, and then they, figure it out from there, or the distress levels may just dissipate with a period of time and then move on again. Thanks, Margaret.
And thanks for sharing that, Mike. I love that he smiled. It was a blip. It's just, again, it's perspective, isn't it? It is the perspective. And he's in a better place now, obviously, now that he could see what had happened. Sarah, if you want to come in on that in terms of setbacks, relapses.
Absolutely, and I suppose it's something that I'm sure John will allude to as well. I suppose working in the acute services and supporting people through the recovery and wellbeing program, it's very much sitting with people who we've come to know quite well, and often the reason for that is because they've had numerous admissions to the acute services where they need that time, where they need to step out of their normal life and the normal and the pressures that come with that, and just take time to themselves. And sometimes people can feel incredibly hopeless about that because they think like I'm back here again, or it hasn't worked, or things have slipped, and that's something that that type of language that we hear a lot. I suppose what helps with that really is giving people space to I suppose to sit with the feelings of feeling hopeless, and not always leaning into that tendency to wanting to rush in to fix them and to come up with solutions. And I suppose very much part of our role is to help you to signpost people and redirect them to services and supports. But I also think it's important to sit with how that is feeling for you right now. And I think it's important for people to give themselves permission, and for us to give ourselves permission to wait for hope to come back, and not necessarily pressurize ourselves to get to that space, and that it will come in its own time, when when we're ready to accept the help and the support, and just I suppose doing what we can to regain control for ourselves, and to take little steps forward in making those decisions for ourselves each day to help ourselves. And all that can be very, I suppose, powerful. But I suppose my message is very much, it's something that can't be rushed. But I suppose, in my experience, in the wards, like Eileen said, everybody moves on, and people are continuously moving, at their own pace towards their own recovery, and it's ongoing. And I think it's being okay to wait for hope to return, and to surround yourself, I suppose, and spend time with people who can, I suppose, be hopeful for you, and to support you whilst you're waiting for those feelings to come back.
And thanks, Sarah. And that's it. I thought that was a really interesting point you brought there, because I was thinking about that when we were putting these questions together, was the role of the mental health professional. And, again, we're talking about holding the hope and all of that, but like just giving space, sitting with your own discomfort as a mental health professional, because it's, and we always talk about the emotional toil of doing this job. It isn't, it can be distressing seeing somebody else being distressed, and that wanting to push forward, when really it's the moment to actually it's okay, and feel the feelings, and then move on. So I think, Sarah, thank you for sharing. That's really important. John, in terms of your perspective of relapse and setbacks, and I don't know what you want to add on that. Is there something you'd like to share?
No, I mean, there's a lot being said already, and absolutely, I can relate to what Sarah was speaking about there, absolutely. Just in relation to, you know, to, I suppose, you know, individuals who, you know, may have represented the hospital and, you know, might be a bit, you know, hopeless over the fact that they have maybe their mental health has deteriorated again, like, you know, and really, I suppose we're in our roles, I suppose, as you know, as therapeutic coordinators, we can have that time, you know, to maybe just to sit with that person and just to you know, encourage them just to try to maybe see things from a different perspective, and maybe, you know, just letting them know as well that, look, at maybe you've been here before, you know, and you've come through it. You've come through it. You know, you've engaged with the activities here. You've met your, you know, you have found a way forward before with your mental health. You know, and you know, there's every reason to, you know, that the person has already made the, you know, the courageous decision to reach out, you know, and get help, you know, and come into hospital. And, you know, it's helping the person realize that actually you've taken that step now to come into hospital for help. You've been here before, you know, you can do this again. You can get through this again, you know. And, you know, we're lucky that we can offer, I suppose, kind of a range of activities, you know, recreational activities to service users here while they're in hospital, whether it be through exercising, you know, yoga, you know, baking, art and craft, and, you know, just kind of encouraging people to, you know, to not just focus on, you know, on the fact that their mood might be low or they're experiencing anxiety, but actually, okay, what has helped, you know, in the past, you know. It could be mindfulness, it could be, you know, mindful coloring, it could be any type of art and craft, it could be gardening, or what has helped in the past, you know, to, you know, that has helped you to maybe not forget about, but kind of change the focus away from how difficult things are in your life right now.
And
But
I think
actually,
I think actually that,
change the focus away from that.
yeah,
To
John,
focus on
that's really,
a positive thing that you might do that day.
yeah, and I think that's really important in terms of that, remembering that you know, there is resilience there coming from a strengths-based perspective as well, you know. Really, really important. You've been here before, you can get through it. It's such an important message. I can't believe the time that we've got left. Very, very little. I'm just going to do, every time I do this, I think we never have enough time. Again, if there's anything you want to share, I'm just going to have a quick check just from Sophie. Just a reflection. The absence of hope is a dark place. It's not easy, but it is essential for recovery. And again, it goes back to what Eileen was saying, that light the candle, you know, just see, to try and find a little bit of light. I'm going to very quickly share just some closing slides, and then I'm going to come back while I'm doing that. I want the panelists just to think about this one final question, and we do need to be brief. One piece of advice for someone struggling to find hope right now. Doesn't matter about whether acute services, they might not be attending any services at all, but just literally, I'm not in great shape here. I don't know about tomorrow or what that's going to bring. Just have a think. Just a one sentence reply if you can. And in the meantime, I'll just share the closing slides. And I suppose the slides here now, if I can find them, what we want to do is actually just give you some idea of what's available out there, and particularly in terms of ARIES. Just bear with me for a moment. I'm having some difficulty here with sharing. Oh. Okay, can everybody see that? Sorry, guys. Sorry, could people see that
Yeah,
what I'm
that was
sharing?
there. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
talk there.
having
Yeah.
problems with my internet, which is always the way here, guys. It's
Mm.
we sometimes have this, so just bear with me. Yeah. So yeah, so basically, if you've heard lots about recovery education here today in terms of the benefits, particularly in the acute units, but we are online, we are a hybrid service, we're online, we've self-paced courses available, and we're also face-to-face. So what's coming up in September, we are looking at the whole CHIME series, so connection, hope, identity, meaning, and empowerment, 2-hour workshops. We'd love you to come along, and you can book those on our website on Eventbrite. We've also got in-person workshops. We've got a lovely partnership with Clare Care, and we're running a parenting self-care series there throughout September into October. Again, you'll get a copy of these slides, so you'll be able to find that. You can also find it, I think, on the ARIES website. We're back in the Hump Museum for the next few months. Every month, we're looking at creativity for well-being, and we're also in Ennis Library, looking at self-care, building my resilience in October. And again, in October, we're journaling for well-being in Limerick Library. So yeah, lots of things happening there. Not next month, October, we will be looking at the I in CHIME. So we'll be looking at identity. So hope you can join us then. And again, you can book that online. As I've already mentioned, on our ARIES website, we have self-paced courses, everything from understanding acute mental health services for families, carers and supporters. We've got a self-care course up there. We've got understanding occupational therapy, and we've got a whole series of perinatal self-care resources, including an audiobook that might be of interest. And that's Midwest ARIES there. So I'm just going to stop the share if I can, because this is my internet's unstable and it's having a wee moment. So bear with me while I stop. That's great. And a thank you to Eileen, you're so good. Putting the feedback link in there. We'd love to hear from you in terms of your experience today and whether you enjoyed it or not. I am now going to do a whistle stop tour of our lovely panelists. And again, it's just that one piece of advice, just if you can, for somebody who's just struggling right now, what would you say to them? Michael.
Yeah, it's quite simple. If you're the person who is struggling at the moment and you don't have hope, all I can say is hang in there, it will get better. And if you're a family member or a friend or a clinician, who's supporting somebody, encourage them to hang in there. And that's what's key. Just say, hang in there, you'll get through this. And to hear that can instill hope. Thanks, Margaret.
Brilliant, Mike. Thank you. And John, I'm going to come to you next. And it's just that one piece of advice, for someone who's struggling right now.
Yeah, I would just say just to always have the courage to reach out to somebody in your life, whether it be a trusted friend or family member or even your GP or the Samaritans or whoever it may be, just knowing that you're not alone and there's always help out there.
And thanks, John.
And just to reach out.
Yeah, that's lovely and so important. Sometimes when we are at our most vulnerable is when and we look for help. That's where we show our strength. So thanks for sharing that, John. Sarah, I'll come to you.
Thanks, Margaret. Yeah, I think if you're struggling to find hope, know that it's okay if it doesn't come immediately. I think it's important to be patient with yourself. Take small steps every day, sit with the feelings and absolutely, confide and talk to somebody that you trust. Hope often, it can return slowly and gradually. And I suppose the important message really is that you don't have to do it alone. That would be my message.
And thanks, Sarah. That's lovely. Again, it's going to that thing of reaching out, helping. Really, really good. Eileen, we'll finish with you. So in terms of your experience, what do you think? What would
Margaret,
you like to say?
My notes here written down. To recognize the feelings, to check in with your thoughts, then to have action around those thoughts and feelings, whatever spectrum they're on, and then to realize that it's a moment in time, it's a way of seeing and being at the moment, and it's a choice, and that there's lots of support out there.
that's brilliant, Eileen. You know, it's just lovely. All I'm thinking, obviously, the development officer side of me is just going ping, 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 all the lovely resources we could build. Thanks for sharing that, Eileen. And we've come to the end. It was a whistle-stop tour of hope. I hope that you found something in that for you. I think it was really worthwhile looking at the acute services, because I think for a lot of people that would be an area where it is very difficult to find hope. But from what we've discovered today, in fact, there's lots of hope to be had there. And that's a really powerful message, I think, to go to people. So I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to ask everybody to open their mics and say a giant goodbye to everybody. And
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye now.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
And I just want to thank you for sticking with us today. We really appreciate it. Hope you're finding hope. When you get off today, whatever you do, you know, even if it's just making a cup of tea, or I don't know, looking out the window at a bird, those little small things, as Sarah was saying, is those moments in our life where we can really discover hope. And thank you to our lovely panelists. You know, thanks for sharing, and thanks particularly for sharing those stories. They're really, really important. That's what people take away. And hope to see you in October for identity. And yeah, whatever you do today, take care of yourself and be kind to yourself, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.